We go. We're live. We will give a minute for people to join.
Oh, I am live right now. How
You are
exciting.
live.
All right. Derik, I say we dive in, man. Let's do it.
Yeah. One thing that I'm curious about, James, how do you feel about Android versus Apple, or just even
I had a feeling this was going to come
Apple
up.
versus PC?
So we
I'm
have
curious.
this Android person, this Apple person. Fortunately, I'm one of those sickos. I have both. So I can
You'd be a
ride both
great
sides of the
moderator.
fence. Yep,
You will.
exactly.
You'll be perfect for that.
So I've kind of got a pretty good idea of what's best in both, different categories, pros and cons of both.
Derik
Now,
and I will
we-
try to take off our usually reserved and nuanced, opinionated selves and go full on hot take here.
Let's
That's
do
right.
it.
Now, the last precursor question I have for you, James, is coming from an IT background. Now, in the past, any IT specialist, you say Mac or Apple, they do that. They sneeze, they roll their eyes,
Sneeze, yeah.
they walk out of the room. They
Which you did to me already.
might throw a punch. Is that still the case? Is Apple still the worst for anybody in the IT field?
I would say no. They got something like 25% of the business market now. Like, there's not an art department out there that isn't using a Mac somewhere. And somebody and a lot of executives, some organizations are exclusively Apple. So that debate still goes on internally, but I believe both have their place for sure.
All right.
How nuanced of you.
You knew I was going to do that.
Very politically correct. I love it. So I looked at all the specs on the iPhone 14. Surprise, surprise, not much.
Are we diving right in?
I guess we're on this already.
We're
Yeah.
going for it.
Here we go.
Not much has changed physically. Internally, they claim yes, it has, but I don't know. My biggest issue, and I'm glad that Gary, you have a Google Pixel, correct?
Indeed, I do.
It's the one Android phone that on the camera side, I actually hear an even take on which is better, iPhone or Android, specifically the Google Pixel. Any other camera out there is crap. We'll just go with that. But in this iPhone 14, they have updated to a 48 megapixel sensor.
On the Pro.
On the Pro. That's right.
Yeah.
Only if you have enough money can you have something like that. Otherwise, they dumb it down pretty aggressively for any poor people out there. I don't know if it's worth it, because one, any picture you take with that 48 megapixel sensor, yes, it'll be sharper, but it's still being down-res to 12 unless you actually shoot RAW. Would anybody shoot RAW on a cell phone?
It's got a fast enough card. They call it Pro RAW, by the way. They have their own proprietary version of Pro RAW.
Of course, they have their
somewhere halfway between the two.
Don't start with that of course thing. Everybody does that. Even the Sony DSLRs and the Canon DSLRs, they all have their own DNG-esque type file.
Maybe.
But my big issue is that dang Lightning port. That is not a good port for exporting anything. Now, if they switch to the USB-C for charging, then maybe, but that Lightning port isn't fast enough. If you have 20 raw images that you want to export to a computer.
Unless you're running a Mac and you airdrop it.
And you airdrop, which is still the game changer and something
airdrop
that
is so fast.
No Android phone can even come close to competing with is airdrop.
True.
I mean, I'll give you the airdrop, but USB-C alone, man. I mean, get with the times.
It's true.
Apple realizes the problem that they've created of all the waste cables to the point where they don't even give you a cable anymore if you buy a phone.
You get a cable, just not a brick.
Oh, excuse me.
Wireless charging options now, right?
Oh, right.
as long as you don't use a case.
Yeah,
Right.
because I have a wireless charger sitting on the side of my wall in my house. No, I don't.
My wife just bought a standing desk and it has one built in.
Wow. And that will work with any Android phone now. Anyway.
True.
My issue anytime I use an Android is it doesn't feel user friendly. I think there's a trade-off on how customizable and special you can make it for how useful it is. And this goes especially with PCs. You can customize a PC until you're blue in the face. You can build one from the ground up. But in my opinion, that's why they all suck. A Mac says you're going to take what we'll give you, but what we'll give you is fantastic.
So I used to feel so full disclosure here, I was an OG iPhone user, but my last iPhone, this is dating, was the 5S. Again, I'm not a new phone guy, so by the time I got out of iPhone, like the 7 was out or maybe the 8, but it's been a while. But I used to have that same beef with anything Android, is that you open up the phone and it looks janky, it looks messy, and it's funny because that's arbitrary, descriptors of an interface, but it just felt off. But then I decided to start looking into switching, and maybe this is just for my phone, which is the Pixel, and because it is pure Google from the hardware standpoint and pure Google now from the operating standpoint, I never once thought, oh, this feels cluttered. Oh, this is messier than the iOS that I came from. Now, not everybody loves Pixels. Most Android users don't use Pixels. Most Android users are on something else. But if we're talking about using the Pixel, I don't think the cleanliness, the clutteriness, as you say, it is just as clean and polished as any, iOS interface. But then, the customization, and I think it's funny. Derik and I were talking about this morning before we got on. Is like, I don't think I qualify as a power smartphone user in any sense of the word. I mean, I plug my phone in at night, and it's at worst 60% battery. Now, maybe that's a testament to the Pixel's battery, which I would also go to bat and defend. But I think it's also a testament to how heavy I'm using my phone, which is not. So me saying, oh, yeah, all these customizable features, when frankly, I don't really use them. And since our conversation is scattered anyway, and we're going to be just one tangent on another, I mean, that goes into one of the big aspects of customization is widgets. And, everybody's all excited that the iOS 14, or what are we on now? 14? No, iPhone 14, iOS.
iPhone 14.
16.
16.
Yeah.
Now supports widgets on the lock screen. Oh my goodness. Wow. Android's had that for like a decade. So.
And always on display too. Is it now like, woo, which Android's had for quite some time.
And always on display. Wow. Yeah. We've also had that for a decade. Way to catch up. And to me, one way or another, like, I don't use widgets. So that wouldn't have been a factor for me either way. I don't like that. I think widgets are cluttered. And I think that's what's funny is that originally Android was the only one with widgets. And I think that's what maybe added to the clutter, is that there was like, oh, these bigger looking app type things on the interface. Well, now Apple has all that too. And look at the convenience you can have of opening subparts of certain applications. Nah. But welcome to 5-year-old, 10-year-old Android specs, Apple.
That's right. You take something that is 5 to 10 years old and you show how to do it better. They do execute quite a bit better. Now, one thing that I do like about the iPhone 14, I hate that they named it. Apple has to name everything.
The island.
The dynamic island.
Island.
Amazing island, perfect island, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
The features are actually pretty slick, though. As from a multi-app, I use multiple apps always. I have something running at all times.
Android's been doing multiple apps.
That's all fine and good, and Apple can do that. Could have done that better for a long time. But to take the ugly pill that they've dealt with, or the notch, and turn it into an actual feature, which when you use it, the interface is pretty impressive. I think it's pretty good. And that's an example of Apple not being first or even second or third or fourth or fifth. But when they do step up to the plate, damn, do they do it well.
Yeah, but to me, I see that and I hear that they've branded it, because of course they have.
They have to.
It sounds just like that, and I can't even remember the name of the silly thing on the Macs, the little bar.
Touch bar?
Oh,
The
the
touch
touch
bar.
bar. Man, I love
touch
that
bar.
Yeah, you've all come around to it, but when it first came out, man, did people hate that thing. I mean, again, I don't use a Mac, so I can't weigh in on if it's nice or good or bad, but it reminds me of that, and it's a little frivolous.
There was so much hate for it. My Mac has that. I love it. What's funny is they immediately got rid of it. It's not around anymore.
Oh, didn't know that.
But Apple is good at that. And then the one thing that everybody unanimously agreed on that was genius was the MagSafe charging port. It was a magnet. So when you kick the cable, which everybody has in their life at least once,
doesn't break.
A magnet. It doesn't break. They took it away. Why? I don't know. And now my current power cable has a little kink in it because it got kicked and it didn't break away the way that the MagSafe used to.
What's our group take here on the aux cable port, the audio jack port?
None of them have them anymore. What's the point? Not a single one of them. All the new Galaxies, Pixels, iPhone, doesn't matter. They're all gone.
I was mad when they took it away from the Pixel, but it's bad. I have a Pixel 5a, so again, I'm not on the
6 is gone.
Really.
Yeah,
the 6 and 6 Pro, but the 5a has one. They brought it back. And do I use it a lot? No, but I use it sometimes, and maybe that's because, look, again, guys, I don't have the latest technology. My car is 15 years old, and so I have a cassette tape that has an aux cable that runs out of it.
Oh, I remember those.
And I can plug it into my phone.
Plug it into your CD player or your phone. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, the cassette tape.
So that's pretty old school. So you're right. Maybe the audio jack really does need to just go away. But my wife and I were both
to make it waterproof,
mad.
Right? They're all IP48 or whatever it is, waterproof now. So my son, in fact, was out fishing, dropped his, I call it an iPhone, in the water, and for an hour they couldn't find it. And some kids came along who were snorkeling. He paid them $20 each. They dug it out of the river, and it was still ringing. That was the wildest part. And they found it with screen on. It was lit up. It was ringing, and still works to this day.
That is always been one of my favorite pranks to play on people. If sitting in a hot tub or in a pool or anything, is I'll drop my phone in the water and pretend to freak out and watch everybody else. Their heart goes up into their throat. Everybody scrambles to try and help me grab it. It's fine. It's nothing's happening.
All right, I took some more notes, and these are admittedly fluff or low jabs, but it's what we're here for, right? So we're shots across the bow here a little bit. Silly catch-up features. We already covered widgets. We already covered the always-on display, which, again, welcome to 2022, Apple.
Refresh rate we could cover, but we'll get to that.
And again, this one's a silly one. And if you're using Apple Maps, regardless of being an iPhone user or not, shame on you. I think you should learn your lesson by now. But apparently there's an upgrade in there that now you can add multiple stops.
Yeah, multiple stops. Yeah.
That one had me laughing.
But you have to manually adjust them in order to sort them correctly. It doesn't do it on its own. If you choose them out of order, it will send you out of order. You have to manually slide them around to get going in the path that you want.
That one got me. That was pretty funny. That's not.
You can now use Siri to add and remove them, where you could not before.
Oh, that's pretty neat.
I just yeah. The other one that you brought up this morning, Derek, that I couldn't believe again, because if I were to switch to iPhone, I'm sure there's things that I'd be like, oh, this is kind of nice that I don't have, and there are other things like why that I take for granted that would be missing. Haptic feedback apparently wasn't a thing.
It wasn't. That was
until last month. And haptic feedback, of course, is just like vibrating while you text, just a little touch there. Yeah, I couldn't believe that wasn't a thing. I thought that was just common smartphone 101, but
No, it wasn't. Apparently, that was something that they were too good for, I guess. The thing that gets me though is I love Google. Great. Pixel seems like a solid phone. I'd never have one. But they also made the Chromebook. And that thing is a nightmare. It's not compatible with anything. It doesn't function the way that any regular laptop does. It's like stepping back into the past.
It's just a
Also
browser
dirt
is all
cheap.
it is. A
They're
browser
dirt
with
cheap.
hardware.
That's what it is. Now,
Schools
it's
can
been a
afford them. Now
godsend
they're
for
everywhere in
schools.
schools.
It's been a godsend for schools. So if you're
Yep.
doing school remotely, then yes, for a 7-year-old, a Chromebook is good. But you can't tell me that Google launched the Chromebook thinking their target demographic was kids in grade school, because that's about all who can get anything out of it. Anybody who's in high school, once you hit high school, it's a useless machine, in my opinion. It's not worth anything.
I guess that does dovetail a little bit into the overall Apple versus not necessarily just Android, iOS, but the Apple versus
Apple and
everything
everything
else
the world
is price. I did a
Yes.
fun price comparison. The iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is the 6.5 inch, and I compared it to the
6.7.
Google Pixel 6 Pro, which is also 6.5, 6.7 inch. 256 gigabyte storage on both. The iPhone is $1,200. The Google is $1,000. Now, never mind the fact that that's just stupid expensive for a phone anyway.
Yeah, very true.
Like, just both of them are stupid expensive. But $200 difference, 20% difference in price for, we could argue nitpicky on specs, but let's just, a 5% differential on the specs between battery and processor and blah, blah, blah. $200 difference. And of course, all you Appleites are going to say, well, that's the brand, man. It's the
logo.
ecosystem.
You're also looking at the Pro Max, the straight version, the iPhone 14 compared to the S22, the Galaxy S22, same exact price, $800 a piece. Now, the Pixel 6 is $600, so
yeah,
different price level. But
the issue with iPhone now, they've done this the last few, is if you get the 250 gig, if you step down, they downrate everything. You get a lesser chip, you get like everything is stepped down. The camera's weaker. My biggest issue with Apple and everything else is screen brightness. I don't know where the Pixel stands on that, but if I ever use a PC or anybody else's, like Samsung, all of those, I feel like the screen has been turned down. It's too freaking dim for me.
it's twice as bright now too.
Oh
Did you
yeah,
notice
they're
that?
super bright.
The new ones are twice as bright in the sunlight.
Yep. And
it's like 2,000 nits, whatever nit is.
Insane.
I thought that was a bug. But
the Apple Watch, they did the same thing. They doubled the brightness on the Apple Watch as well. That's the one thing.
The heck out of battery life, but
oh yeah, I feel like I'm squinting every time I look at a device that isn't an Apple or a Mac.
All right, so what's good with the iPhone 14? Should we talk about that? You ready to do that?
Good with the iPhone 14.
How about the crash detection, you guys? Come on. That's cool stuff.
The what?
The crash detection.
Yeah.
And you get in a wreck, right? Yeah. It's got these, gravimeters or whatever they're called, and some accelerometers in there. And if it detects that you tumbled, all right, and did all this high G stuff, then it for 10 seconds, it alerts you and says, do you want to call? You swipe to call. And if you don't, within 10 seconds, it just launches a call anyway.
It's true.
That's pretty cool stuff. But even better than that was the SOS satellite feature, right?
Oh,
so now this is cool stuff. So
what's that? Walk us through that.
All right. So SOS satellite, they're coming in November. It's on all the iPhone 14s. They don't have a price yet. They said it's free for the first 2 years, so we'll see what this turns out to be. But it will do a burstable, compressed text link to a satellite. So kind of mostly for outdoors, right? So if you get lost in the woods somewhere, or your car breaks down, you're in the middle of nowhere, if you can get access to the sky, then you can set up a satellite link. And they got this cool little, their ad was pretty cool, right? They show these two hikers in the middle of nowhere, and they're lost. And the lady pulls up her iPhone, and it says, of course, no cell service because they're in the middle of nowhere. So she fires up this satellite link, and it kind of directs you, point toward the satellite. Okay, stay here for a minute. Now, it pulls up a list of options. I'm lost, I'm hurt, a couple other options. You send that, and it sends it to a company they've partnered with called Global Star, and Global Star will send an emergency vehicle to respond. So this is a pretty cool feature, I have to admit. I mean,
Yeah.
phone features, the heck with all those. If I'm in the middle of nowhere, which I've been before, I may have an option if I'm lost or hurt or something else. And so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're looking out for people like that. Or,
That
maybe
is
they're
cool.
just trying to market it, but it's a pretty cool feature, I have to admit. That's coming in November, supposedly, and we'll see. And they did all these tests with like millions of crash data to try to make the sensors inside respond only to crash events and accidents, not because I dropped my phone and suddenly the ambulance shows up. Right. So, so we'll see how this plays out, but it looked pretty cool. I have to say that was pretty awesome. And it works with the Find My integration too.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to find your family member, right, who may be lost, you can use the satellite. You can go, you know where they are.
They added a feature in relation to that with the Apple Watch, the Ultra. Apple Watch Ultra is, I think it comes in around $700, something like that, $800, somewhere between there. Wow. It is, and it's massive. Like it's the biggest screen. You get one style. It's got like a programmable button on the side, but that is very much for the extreme athletes. So you can dive with it down to 100 meters and it'll actually give you depth information, pressure information, all that kind of stuff when you're diving. Ooh. If you're a climber or a big time hiker, it gives you all sorts of information. It's got dual band GPS, which means if you go in and out of service, for the most part, it'll hang on to your location regardless of where you are. And then it has an SOS feature where it lets out this, especially for a little watch, a very loud noise to help alert people that might be within your vicinity. So that is pretty cool that they're focusing on all of that. How many people will use it? I don't know. I can't wait for the YouTuber to test that crash feature and see how well it works.
Yes, somebody will do it for the TikTok.
Somebody will do it. Yeah,
literally crash their car. And
I want to see that. That'll be interesting. I don't suggest that you do, but if you do it, please let me know.
Yeah. Don't make this the new Tide Pod challenge, please.
I don't know. I'm a firm believer in natural selection, so I'm not too worried about that.
What about?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Gary. I'll just say, did you guys hear about the eSIM, right? So now instead of SIM cards, SIM tray's gone. No more SIM cards. Android. I know. Now you get two of them, so you can do two. I know there's some other phones been doing that for a while.
I've had a virtual SIM card since I got my Pixel.
Have you? Okay, nice.
And maybe that's a feature. I'm on Google Fi. Maybe that's part of that too. But anyway,
my concern with the eSIMs for any of them is how does that make it? Do you have to go back to it being difficult to switch?
So on the iPhone, it's a setting change. You just a couple clicks and you switch to your other one.
Oh, I mean, if you have an iPhone SIM card and you want to switch to an Android, is that going to be difficult? Or if you have an Android and you want to switch to an iPhone,
switch back, right?
Are they just not going to let you?
Man, I see what's a carrier thing.
Yeah,
it would be so interesting to see what kind of migration patterns there are across Apple to Android.
And vice versa.
Because I wonder if there's not that much. This is totally anecdotal, me guessing. I don't know. But all you do is you get the new users. iPhone families tend to be iPhone families. Android families tend to be Android families. And so new user, you don't get existing users swapping of it. More so you get new users that are part of family that are growing up, things like that. And that goes back to, the costs. Android phones are generally more entry level and approachable for most people. But I was going to say, on the theme of Apple's user protection, which again, there's a lot of props to be given on that front. Derik and I talked about this on another episode of Between the Bytes, so plug to go check out past episodes of the podcast. But Apple's privacy controls, maybe some good and bad there, but generally speaking, props to Apple for prioritizing that. Now, as Derik and I mentioned, I think in the podcast, we won't go full on into that. We're under no illusions that Apple's intentions are completely noble and above reproach.
God, no.
They have their app store. They're a multi-billion, nearly $1 trillion company. Give me a break. But it is, I think, a good stride as the theme of Between the Bytes in general of cyber protection, especially for users. So props on that front.
Personally, I think it's a little preemptive. You don't want a story to come out and oh no, Apple's been tracking everybody's activity in the App Store aggressively. What you look at, how long you look at it for, what you view, your interests. Apple tracks all of that stuff. So now there really can't be a story that comes out and says, "Oh my gosh, Apple's doing all this," because Apple's already put in the groundwork to show that they, care about people's privacy. And you can tell by the messaging, and I know I've said this before, so I'll make it quick. When Apple came out with that, you get onto Facebook or Instagram, a notification came up on your iPhone. It said, "This app is trying to track your activity," and it's all scary in a big notification. Do you want to let it track you or not? Yes or no? Then they sent out a similar notification, same message in the App Store. It says, "Would you like us to track some of your high-level activity to make sure that we give you the best user experience possible in our App Store? Yes or no?" That's how aggressively different they worded it versus Apple doing it, which is out of the goodness of their hearts, and everybody else doing it, which is just pure evil. That drove me a little crazy.
They are pro marketers. There's no doubt.
Oh, they're good at it.
They are very good at that.
Which
I
They're
don't think
selling
there's a
brand.
lot of back and forth between users. Anybody who gets into an iPhone, obviously you're not going to downgrade. Why would you step down to something less effective?
Please leave
And then we get people like you, Gary, where it's a point of pride now. It doesn't matter if all of a sudden Google just lets out, let's say, 7 duds in a row for 7 straight years. They just bomb on them. I don't think they would, obviously. They just bomb. I think there's a lot of users out there that'll just suffer through it because they're too prideful to switch to something better.
Like so many other things in the world now, it's another tribal camp to live in.
It really is. It's very aggressive camps.
But let's be honest, they're selling something. iPhone's doing something right. Apple's doing something right because when they release an iPhone, people line up out the door to go buy these, and you don't see that happen in the other markets.
The last upgrade I did was from the 11 to the 13. I waited 7 months after the release, something like that. Some of the Pro size, because I like really big phones. So the Pro that I wanted was still sold out. 7 months later, it was still sold out. I could get it in space gray, which I think is the most criminally boring color in the world. They just put space in front of the word gray. It's still just a gray friggin' phone. But again, that's Apple's marketing savvy. Call it space gray, and then all of a sudden it's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, midnight and starlight are black and white for the colors now.
You know that it was just the cheapest color that they could get because space gray's been around since the iPod came out. That was just the cheapest color because you don't have to tint anything. But yeah, it still took that long after that many months. So yeah, Apple is doing something right. What's funny though is there is a country in South America. Was it Brazil? I think it was something like Brazil is actually suing Apple for selling an incomplete product by not including the little charging brick in their iPhones.
Also sounds like something Europe would sue for.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Europe has don't quote me on this. I heard it in passing, but I think Europe said by 2024, it's USB-C or nothing. And they'll ban the sale of iPhones.
Yeah.
Period.
I saw that too.
Which the FCC's been trying to fight that battle for forever, but for some reason, Apple as a whole, Apple, Mac, everything can just get away with ignoring that.
Standards.
I guess one last commentary I'll throw out, maybe as we wrap up here our lively discussion, is my observation in general as I thought about, excuse me, the iPhone 14 versus the Google Pixel and all the things that the iPhone came out with. And I thought, if I'd gone back to myself 10 years ago, which 2012, I don't know what version of the iPhone we were on yet. Obviously, the Google Pixel didn't exist yet. But let's just say 2012 was approximately the iPhone 4 or 5, give or take. It was probably the 4. So pretty early iteration. Now, on the one hand, we've come a long way in terms of what the smartphone is and can do. But on the other hand, not really. It's still just a glass brick that's a computer in your hand, that is a miracle of technology and is amazing, unprecedented in all of human history. I'm not diminishing that. It just 10 years of innovation doesn't seem that innovative to me, I guess. We're celebrating all these features the iPhone came out with, or the Pixel, and comparing pixel amounts in the camera. And it's like, and look, I'm not a technologist. I don't know what the big iterative change should be, but it hasn't happened. And in 10 years, you think something would have been really remixed by now. And it doesn't, and whether it's Apple, whether it's Android, just the landscape in general seems a little stagnant. And every year we got to release something new that's got a little bit better specs, all because we just got to sell more of these things. We're not actually improving these things.
And this is why you need a company like Samsung. You think of Samsung and their lineup of phones.
The foldable.
Man, have they sent out a lot of really horrible, terrible phones. But it's because they're not afraid to try some really weird shit. They are the ones that are pioneering the foldable phones. Yeah. And honestly, if anything would make me switch from Apple, it would be when they really get the foldable technology down. It's still, when you open up a foldable phone, you can still feel the crease. And I get that, yes, the OLEDs are pretty durable, but still the thought of opening and closing a phone however many times a day for 3 years, you can't tell me that screen's still going to be okay after 3 years. Because those phones are $1,700 to $1,800. They are not cheap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm going to want at least 3 years out of a phone, which is pathetic because I used to have the little flip phone from Singular when Singular Wireless was a thing. And that dang phone, it had a mirror on the front, not even a camera. It was a ridiculous mirror on the front. It was indestructible. I threw it out of a car once onto the highway, not highway, onto the pavement though. It wasn't a dirt road. It was a paved road. I threw it out of a car going 30. Nope. It didn't even turn off. It was still on.
But it's funny that you mentioned we had a flip phone X number of years ago. Now we have a flip phone now going, ooh, it's a flip phone, right?
Yeah, so it's not special.
What I miss are buttons for typing, right? You could type so much faster. I could feel the buttons.
You could go faster.
You know, Blackberries, right? We could actually feel the buttons and you could go much faster. Now I got to look at the thing. I got to keep looking at the thing. So I do miss actually touch typing. I do miss buttons. I don't know how they're going to bring that back, but they should.
I had a Blackberry. I loved the full keyboard. So when I was texting somebody or writing an email, it was great. I never used that phone for anything else because I hated the user interface for everything else. So it actually was a good thing. If you want to not use a phone as much, if you feel like you're too glued to it, BlackBerry, Samsung, some of those phones are really great because they'll make you so mad every time you try to use a different application, you just won't anymore. It's a good way to cut out social media.
Break addiction by using an inferior product. I love it. That's right. Pitch.
So, all right, I'm going to throw out there that there are pros and cons to both. Having owned both,
it's true.
I would say there are pros and cons to both. I will say the iPhone is a much more polished, smooth UI and environment, right? When I click on something, like I switch to video from audio, the audio fades out, the video fades in as far as the sound goes. I mean, everything is just much more crisp and clear. However, it also plays every time I get in my car. Even if I wasn't playing something when I started with, every time I get in my car, it insists I listen to something. It drives me bonkers. It just picks some random thing and starts playing it. I do like, however, I can't run, I'm a tech, right? So I can't run my networking tools in this because they're all locked down and I can't get to them. On my Android, I can run all these wireless analysis tools and I do. That's what I use to scan it out, to scan wireless and all that. So much more open, a bit more versatile. Both have their pros and cons, in my opinion.
And yeah, iPhone and Apple, Macs are in general, no, you don't get to customize them at all. You can tell if you've ever watched somebody who takes apart an iPhone, that is a process. oh my gosh, that is a process. It's not made to be taken apart and repaired. No, if you crack your screen, just go buy a new iPhone is what they want.
Right.
The last thing, Google came out with their AirPods equivalent. I haven't heard much about it. I didn't get a chance. From the captions and things that I'm reading, it sounds like they actually did pretty well. But the new AirPods that Apple came out with sound pretty amazing. When I worked in a warehouse, I listened to music 12 hours a day. And so I had the AirPods Pro. The noise cancellation is unrivaled except by Bose. Bose is the only other company that has come close. Yep. But what do they call the feature where it lets in ambient noise?
Yeah,
I can't
you
remember.
could turn off the sound blocking.
What it does though is there's microphones on the outside, one for the noise cancellation, but then what AirPods does is it listens to everything around you, makes it quieter, but then plays it in your earbuds, which in a warehouse is a godsend. When you have forklifts driving back and forth, you want to be able to hear it, but you don't want it to blow your ears out. So that feature alone makes those insane. They're like $250. It's an insane price. Unless you're used to buying Bose headphones, then you're like, oh, that's actually pretty reasonable. That feature alone is fantastic. And then on the new ones that they came out with, one, they added a little lanyard hook to the case if you really want to. It seems like a really nerdy thing to do, but whatever. Two, they've doubled the noise cancellation, which I personally call BS on. I'll see it when I can actually demo those headphones, but that would mean that they've outperformed even Bose now. And then the biggest one is there's now a little speaker on your AirPods case that you can ping when you lose that stupid case, which is actually quite easy. You have your headphones in so that you can walk around and move. You're not putting it in your pocket. You're going to set it somewhere. Now you can ping it, which in my opinion is the only good use of an Apple Watch. I get too many notifications. So when I had an Apple Watch, the happiest day of my life was when it broke. I never even tried to fix it because all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have notifications anymore. But being able to ping your cell phone from your Apple Watch, that is the coolest feature, the most genius thing in the world. That's, in my opinion, its only use. But those little things are pretty smart. So we'll see if Google can keep up because Apple has had quite the head start in the earbud range.
Well, and to Gary's point, no innovations in the last decade. Crash detection, satellite linkage for lost people.
That's cool.
That's a pretty big deal, I think. I mean, we'll see if it works. Of course, it's still coming out in November, but if it does as it says it does, that could be a pretty big game changer, guys.
As for the price, I'm optimistic. That is one thing that Apple doesn't do is they don't charge you an arm and a leg for the little things. Like if you need iCloud, if you want to pay for extra storage for the little things, Gary, if you want a terabyte
monitor stand.
Oh God. Yeah, no, don't do that. That's just silly. I'm saying if you want a terabyte of iCloud storage, it's like it might have gone up. It's like $1.99. So I don't think the satellite service will be some insane price. I hope not.
I hope not.
But no, if you want an Apple accessory, if you're buying accessories for any of your Apple products straight from Apple, that's your fault. That's not on Apple. That's your fault. I swear that's got to be their motto. Is anybody who buys our accessories isn't using their head very well. Buy third party. Apple's been around long enough that any of the third party tools or accessories are just fine. Don't buy a case for your iPad from Apple. That's ridiculous. They charge you for the back piece and then separately for the front piece. I've never seen a company try so hard to say F you to their own clientele. Do you want a full case? That'll be $90 because it has a magnet that turns the screen off when you close it.
Yeah.
All that being said, I refuse to leave Apple because everything else just sucks. It's inferior.
Tribalism at its finest. I love it.
Oh man,
that's so true.
Well, I think it's time we wrap this up. Good discussion. Yep. I think we've covered, a lot of the big points. We didn't go into the PC Mac debate, but that's maybe for another day. And we'll let the IT nerds really hash that one out. But Yeah, as you said, James, in summary, pros and cons, personal taste abound when it comes to this this discussion in the first place. So,
yeah,
Derek,
iOS 16, you can remove text messages and edit text messages already been sent now.
If the other person is
If
running
the person
iOS
is also
16.
on
we're
iOS
trying to
16.
wrap up here, and you want to bring up the stupid SMS thing. Don't get me started on
Green
Apple digging
bubbles.
their heels in on
That's
being
terrible.
dumb.
Especially because what everybody else is using in this one case is an upgrade of what Apple's
Right,
using.
yeah.
It's an actual upgrade that
I mean,
Apple's
you
refusing
saw
to
what Tim Cook said to the guy that's like, look, man, my grandma, I can't, the blue bubbles, green bubbles. He's like, we'll just buy your grandma an iPhone.
Okay, iPhones come out tomorrow, and pluses come out on the 7th of October. If anyone is still interested in buying.
This episode of Between the Bytes is not sponsored by Apple or Google.
Oh God, Apple won't even pay their bug
Or
bounties. They're
Samsung.
not going to sponsor any marketing. That's for sure. iOS 16 is out. I actually updated last night. So
On
far,
the pros.
I genuinely love it.
Only on the pros.
It's only on the iPhone Pros. All right. So any of you who don't have a Pro, think about your choices, I guess.
Peasant.
You peasant.
I got a Google security update last night.
Woo.
And in the theme of Between the Bytes, keep your OS up to date, folks. Stay secure.
Please do.
The new OS for Sam's or any Android phone, you get better language features app by app. That's basically the whole thing. Nothing else has changed. So
You get more emoticons on the iPhone. My wife always comes and tells me about the new emoticons.
Always a
I'm
great
like,
day.
really?
It's always
Really,
a
honey?
great day. So many other ways to express your feelings.
You know what? Apple totally wins. I concede the debate.
Perfect. On that note, we're going to call it a wrap. Harry admitted it. Apple wins.
All right.
All right, everybody.
Been a
Thanks,
pleasure,
guys,
James.
everybody, for watching and listening. We'll argue about Apple computers and PC in the near future because I use both, and man, do I have words. So we'll save that for the next one.
I'm looking
Hope
forward to
everybody
that.
has a good day, and check us out on Between the Bytes, our weekly podcast. And we'll see you guys there.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
See ya.
See ya.
Wow.